My name is Alfredo Jaar, and there is no title yet. There are two projects that are on the works, but we don't know exactly what we're going to do. I was commissioned to do a project for the Art and Nature Park, and so I've worked on this project for maybe I think almost a couple of years, and so today was a special day because today I presented the result of this project, and in the end it turned out that I've presented two projects. So the museum will think about this and decide which one they want to go. No, my work has a certain gravitas, and it's very serious and very actually perhaps even depressing. So I don't think I have any funny story about it. What's interesting about this is that the museum is really creating a new model of thinking about art, because it is expanding beyond its borders, creating a museum without walls outside. And so that's quite remarkable, and it fits perfectly within my philosophy, because as an artist, I not only work within museums and institutions, but a large segment of my work, more than 50%, is dedicated to what I call public interventions in spaces and communities outside of the museum walls. So for me, that a museum of this caliber, of this scope, of this reputation, of this size would decide to create this park and invite artists like me to do projects, I think is quite remarkable, and I hope it's the start of a new trend in the world of culture. I'm an architect, and I work as an architect, and so I consider myself an architect making art. And I go through a very long process. In fact, I'm the last artist to present my project. Of the 10 artists commissioned for this park, I was the last one to present it today. It's because it's a very long process. It's a very serious, investigative approach, where I studied the history of the museum, the history of the location of this museum, its relationship to communities around the museum, its program, its exhibition program, and everything I can learn about the place in general, not only of the museum, but the city where it is placed, and the community where it is placed. And when I look at a space, I'm not speaking only or thinking only about a geographical space, a physical space. It's also a cultural space. It's also a political space. And so the research has taken me in many, many directions. And I start thinking about possible ideas only when I have a certain amount of information that creates a kind of critical mass. And from within that critical mass, suddenly you start seeing emerging certain issues, certain ideas. And so I explore these venues. And after a while of development of these different ideas, I try to analyze them and to discuss which are the most relevant to the mass of information that I've accumulated. And that's when I decide which road I will take. And I start developing a project. In this case, I thought there were two very relevant, let's say, flows of ideas, and I didn't want to cut them. So I just went for two different projects. So I developed two projects, and that I presented today. And of course, the museum was not expecting two projects; they were expecting a single one. But I've given them the choice, and it's a very clear choice because the projects are very different. I'm not a studio artist that would work on a certain medium and develop ideas based on a medium. I am a project artist, meaning that every project will end up requiring the use of certain materials. So if you look at the body of my work of the last 20 years, you will see that I've used everything. I've done film, video, sound, installations, sculptures, objects, photography, drawing, you name it. Because the final material is just there to articulate the ideas I'm trying to work with. So I feel extremely free as an artist in my choice and selection of materials, and it's never arbitrary. This is not the starting point, but it's only the ending point, where I finally determine that for this idea, this objective, this is a material that I think fits the best. They both fit perfectly because they're mine, it's me, and I haven't changed radically my way of working or my way of thinking, so basically people will recognize me. Perhaps one of them is a little more spiritual, a little more contemplative. It has a kind of healing quality that not all my projects have. So perhaps if the museum decides on that project, it might be a slight departure from my work. I work as an artist because for me the space of art and culture is the last free remaining space where we can think freely and where we can speculate and dream of a better world. So what I do as an artist, I create models of thinking about certain situations that interest me. And I'm hoping that my audience will have the experience of these works and leave with this notion of that there is a different way of thinking about certain things, and perhaps they can apply these models of thinking to other situations that are similar. And so for me, the space of art is a space of freedom, and it's a very privileged space where I try to affect change. And with a cultural project, with a cultural program, with a cultural objective, and I think that culture as a whole has this capacity of inserting itself in life, in society, in the world, and may have the capacity to produce change. It's difficult, but just imagine for a second what would life be without culture, without cultural institutions. So it's a fundamental, essential element of our daily lives. And I believe that as artists we have a privilege to be working within that area. But that privilege comes with a responsibility. The responsibility to ask questions to our society. Why is it the way it is? How can we make art out of information that most people would rather ignore? How do we make art in a world that is in such a state? So we ask questions, we do not have answers, we speculate, and we just think about these things, and we communicate the result of our thinking to the audience and share it with them. I'm looking at the world, I'm looking at the mess. There's nothing else to look at, and I'm looking at films and magazines and books that reflect this mess we are in. I think that I have no other choice, because as an artist I'm active in this world, and my work responds to events and tragedies and situations within that world. So I would say that's really that's my arena, that's where I work. And of course, beside this, always in parallel, I'm researching for upcoming projects in different places. So those are more specific type of research, and typically when I start working in a place, I'm interested in poetry, So I look for the poets of the place, because the poets, I think, are the most brilliant thinkers in culture today, and they also have the most silent voices. So I'm always interested to see what poets are thinking and writing, and how they are creating in those places. So they are a source of inspiration as part of my research. I have more than specific films, I have authors. And those would be Michelangelo Antonioni, Pier Paolo Pasolini, Jean-Luc Godard, Theo Angelopoulos. These are thinkers who make films that are not easy. They're not for the largest public, the largest audience. But those films, the films of these authors, have been a very important source of inspiration for me, and I see them continuously. I would be what I already are, which is I would be a filmmaker, and I would be an architect. And in my work as an artist, I've done more and more projects that deal with architecture, and a couple of years ago I released my first film. So in a way, I'm a filmmaker and an architect that is working anonymously in the art world. I studied film. Okay. I'm a filmmaker. Perfect. That's my degree. And I hate to be on this side.